Hey everyone, and welcome back to Spooktober. Today, we're going to be reviewing one of my favorite movies of all time, not only in the horror genre, but overall, and that's going to be Return of the Living Dead. Now, this movie was set in 1985, along with another very popular movie, zombie movie, which was Day of the Dead, was also 1985 by George Romero. This movie, however, is a parody. It basically makes fun of itself, and I'm pretty sure it's the first zombie parody that you will see. Now, two other parodies just to give you an idea of what a parody is. If you've seen Shaun of the Dead or Zombieland, it's basically that, where it's more of a comedy type thing. Now, this movie, things are a little different. The zombies overall are different. You basically can't kill these zombies. Now, traditionally, the Romero zombie is killed by shooting the head or, removing the brain, which will turn them lifeless. In this series, you can cut appendages off, you can cut the head off, you can do whatever, burn them. They still come after you. In fact, if you were to say cut the arm off, the arm will then come after you. So, like I said, it's making fun of itself. It's a parody. This movie was directed by Dan O'Bannon. Who he did a lot of things. He did a lot of screenplay with the movie Aliens and also Total Recall. Unfortunately, he died early in his early 60s from Crohn's disease a few years back. But he did a bang-up job. He was only like in his 30s when he made this movie, so that's amazing. So the movie basically stars a group of teenagers, and it's straight out of the 80s with what they're wearing, what music they listen to, over-the-top makeup and over-the-top hairstyles. So that's basically the premise. Is it's a bunch of teenagers. However, one thing that separates this movie, and I think what really makes this movie, is the introduction. Now, as you know, most movies have an introduction, and right away they're showing you who stars in the movie, the actors, and then the title of the movie. This movie basically goes balls to the wall. They do something that very rarely you see in a movie, and what they do is they cue a few minutes of film, and then bam, hit you in the face with a title after a very shocking event. So the introduction of this video is a company called Unita Medical Equipment, and what happens is a young guy is one of the main characters. Freddy is in his teens, and his uncle got him a job at this warehouse where they store basically anything from like medical devices, anything like veterinarian science, like split dogs so they can be studied, butterflies, and crazy of all, human corpses to be studied. So Freddy, who's kind of like obsessed with this type of thing, his uncle got him the job. And what makes this movie really cool is it's self-aware. It kind of breaks the fourth wall. His uncle, who got him the job, asked him in the beginning of the film, "Have you ever seen the movie Night of the Living Dead, which took place in 1968? And Freddy says, "Yeah, that's the one where the corpses come back and start eating people." And his uncle basically says, "Well, this really happened. It was a movie, but the government covered it up. The government is what caused Night of the Living Dead." Because if you've ever seen the film, Romero never reveals what caused corpses to come back. Well, this movie takes that and says the government did it. And basically what he tells his nephew Freddy is that he has some containers down in the basement of the factory or the warehouse that they're in that contain corpses that the government asked for them to store them. So they go down into the basement, and his uncle shows him that there's these metal canisters, and he wipes off one of them and it shows that there's a corpse inside. Well, of course, he ends up bumping the canister, and gas is released, which knocked the two characters out. And bam, that's the introduction that finally reveals the title screen, Return of the Living Dead. And it plays a really cool rock music song called Trioxin 245. Now, Trioxin 245 is what causes corpses to reanimate. It's the gas. So it's a pretty peculiar, pretty unique name, but I can't show it because of copyright issues, but go on YouTube and look up Trioxin 245 or Introduction to Return of the Living Dead, like a video, and you'll get the feel of how badass the introduction is. So anyway, Moving on, there's going to be some spoilers. I kind of some videos I don't spoil or give minor spoilers, but I'm probably going to be giving moderate spoilers here. So if you haven't watched the movie, stop here and go see it for yourself. Otherwise, if you've seen it, continue to watch if you like what you see. So basically, the two characters wake up and they're coughing real bad, and they go back upstairs and they hear the freezer that there's knocks on the door in the freezer, and they're like, what the hell's going on? And they hear barking and all this, like dog barking. So they investigate and they go over to see a dog on its side, like a little small, like really small dog. I don't know what breed it is, and it's barking and its tongue's hanging out. And Freddy, the nephew, picks up the dog, and then you see the other half of the dog, which it's split in half, and all its organs are beating and everything. It's really nasty. And they go over to the freezer and they realize what the screaming inside is. There's a corpse they have held in there. So what they do is they call the owner of the company, and he comes down and decides, after he realizes what happened, he wants to open the door and get rid of this corpse. So they open the door and this thing goes nuts and attacks them. And they end up cutting off its head and all that, and it doesn't kill it. So what they do is they take a hacksaw and they hack up this body and put it in a bunch of garbage bags. They take it over to the owner of the warehouses. One of his best friends works right next door in a funeral home / crematorium, and they basically, he asks for a favor and says, "Can we burn this?" Because he don't want to get in trouble with, with the law, just knowing that they cut up a corpse, and they don't want to know that the government. They don't want the government to know that they open up these canisters. So where the problem lies is they send the body to the crematorium and burn it. Now smoke rises out, and the smoke gets into the atmosphere and causes acid rain. Now the acid rain hits the nearby cemetery, of course. There's a cemetery. It's all perfect. Of course, it's a movie. And when the rain hits the ground and seeps into the coffins, it causes all the corpses to reanimate. So basically, that's the premise of the movie, and for the rest of the movie, these characters are trying to survive. All these corpses. Another different thing besides that you can't really kill them is these zombies run. I think also, besides it's being the first parody, I believe this is the first type of running zombie that you see. Other films that do this is, if you've seen the new remake of Dawn of the Dead, I think like 2004 with like Ving Rhames. I think Matt Snyder directed it, who also did the movie 300. Could be wrong, but that's what comes to memory. These zombies run. And one final note, which is very different. I think it's maybe the only film, well, maybe the only most known film. I'm sure there's a lot of B movies that do, but these zombies can talk. They can use simple words. They say things like later on they kill a couple cops and radio in saying send more cops or send more paramedics so that they can eat them. And one other big thing that these zombies differ from, besides that they can run and can't be killed and can talk, they only crave brains. Whereas most zombies, like The Walking Dead or any of the Romero series, the zombies eat anything like viscera, skin, eyeballs, anything, and then they cause reanimation. These zombies don't cause reanimation, which makes it different. Once they eat the brain, the person really can't come back as a zombie. So basically, that's the premise. You see that these characters are trying to survive, and towards the end of the film, what happens is they call the government finally. They're like, look, this is what happened. So the government causes, they send a nuclear warhead to destroy this town, and what happens is once the nuke hit, it causes acid rain, and the process basically continues. It starts all over again. Now, this series continued. There was Return of the Living Dead 2, which is also a pretty decent movie. It's the next one, and it's okay. Not as good as the first. And then after that, they just kept making them, and then it turned into shit. Like, as you know, the more sequels you go, the worse it gets. Now, before I end, many of you are probably like, well, are you going to talk about him? And yes, I'm going to talk about him. What really, really makes this movie, besides pretty good acting, there are a few good actors in the film, is a famous zombie, probably the most famous zombie, if not one of them, is a character called Tarman. Now, is he not goddamn freaking just very creepy? He's so cool. I didn't really look up who did the makeup or whatever, but my God, whoever was in that suit that they did, or whatever they're wearing, the prosthetics and the dripping and all that, it is goddamn beautiful. And he's such a cool character. Even though he probably only has less than a minute of screen time, if you ask any just basic horror fan and you say, "Hey, who's Tarman?" Dude, everybody knows who Tarman is. So he's my favorite character in the film, besides some of the human characters. But it's one of those things, you could watch this movie 100 times, which I've seen it a lot, and every time you see him, you're just in awe, just how cool the effects are, and just how badass of a zombie he is. But that's basically my review. Like I said, if you haven't seen it yet, go out and buy it. By this point, you could probably buy it for a few bucks. I own it myself. It's probably, I'm going to say it's probably my favorite zombie movie of all time, and I own a lot of zombie movies. If it's not my favorite of all time, because sometimes I switch it up and kind of change my mind, but it's awesome, and I'll always come back to it. It's one of those movies, believe it or not, the more you watch it, the better it gets. So if you guys kind of can relate to that with one of your favorite movies, this is how I feel about it. So anyway, thanks for watching, and Spooktober will continue. See you guys.